We have our frame modeled, we have materials assigned, we have unwrapped, we have made a light source, and we have defined our materials with our nodes. We are about ready to bake. Let's look at our whole setup. I'm clicking on the model, going over and finding the material pane. Here's frame, and I'm going to go to material mode. I spend a lot of time in material mode. You may like modeling better in solid mode. When we go to bake, it's a good thing not to be in render mode because that takes a lot more power from your computer, and the rendering engine when it bakes takes a lot of power too. So you need to think about that. Let's review just a little bit. Here is our photo frame. And we have our light source. You need to be able to see the light source when you bake, and if we check this in rendering, we can see that everything's working fine. You do not want to be in the rendered view when you bake though. I already warned you about that. So we'll go back to materials. Over here we're on frame, and this is what we're seeing in our node editor. This is about as simple as you can get. We will be making much more complex ones in the future, but right now this is what we have. This is our wood texture. If we open this up, we can see it says wood texture. And here we need to tell it to be in photo frame. That's the texture that we made to bake to, remember? Okay. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, and we see our setup here. Go over to the render, the little camera icon here. We looked a little while ago and noted that the preview was set at 25 as the default. If you have problems with that, you can set it down depending upon how hefty your computer is. For rendering, I always make a test bake and I just use 20. 20 is not good for a finished texture, but it is perfectly good to let us know if we're on the right track. So that's what we're going to do. So with all this highlighted, and we're in the render engine area, we have this on render, and there's one more thing we have to check down here. Down here there's a margin set up, and I believe that the margin default is 16, which is not going to be very good for what we want to do. I usually have mine set at 1. If it's a big texture, it would be more than 1, but let's try 1 and we'll see what happens. We want to be in combined mode. There's different ones. We want to be in combined because we're going to be baking an ambient occlusion map onto the texture map and get it all in one texture. And we're going to hit bake. This isn't going to take too long. Oops, we have a problem. Now, if you haven't figured it out yet, I frequently lead you down the path of problems because I know which problems show up a lot, and you'll probably see them along the way. So we're going to fix that problem. Frequently, Blender gives you very foggy messages about what's wrong. The message for this was actually telling us that we did not have a texture to bake to for all of our materials. So let's go back up here to materials and look again. There's frame, it's fine. Let's click on photo. There's nothing there for it to bake to. Now we aren't really going to use the texture that we're baking to, but we still need a texture to bake to so far as Blender is concerned. I've made a new image and called it photo area. And that's what I've put in this area that's going to be our photo in world. We don't want it to bake to the same texture as our frame because they would overlap, but we do want to define it so that we can put in regular 512 textures when we get in world. Let's give that another try. There we go. And there's our final texture. We're going to go to Image, Save as Image, and save the file wherever you want to save it. We will upload it into Second Life in just a minute. We also need to save our model, but before we save our model, I'd like you to switch to Object Mode, and we're going to go Object, Apply, Location, Object, Apply, Rotation and Scale, Object, Transform, Origin to Geometry. A long time ago, somebody who really knew what they were talking about told me to do that every time, and it saves a lot of issues, so I suggest you get into the habit of doing that too. Now you can go ahead and export your model just like we exported the crate. Be sure that you use the SL static upload option, and I'll meet you in World. I'm over on the beta grid. Let's try uploading our model. Build, Upload, Mesh Model. Navigate to wherever your model is. Here's our photo frame. We'll call it Photo Frame. And this time we're going to upload it at a higher resolution because it isn't a test. So I'm going to use LOD above. We'll talk more about LODs and what they are in the future. And we'll leave this one at 3. In physics, I could use one of these, but I'm going to use a cube from a file. I have a model called Cube Plane that I use all the time for this purpose. You can use your crate because all it is a cube. That's our physics model. And for all practical purposes, aside from the fact that we want the uploader to be happy and we want the server to be happy, a physics model isn't terrifically important in this case. But we're still going to do it because that's a good thing to do. In our upload options, remember that our photo frame was 2 meters, and that's pretty big. So here we can make it, how about we make it half that size, and that'll make it 1 meter. See, it tells you right here what it's going to be. Okay, we're going to calculate our weight and phi, which is going to be small. See, it's small again because this is a very simple model. And we're going to upload our model. In our Recent tab, we can find the photo frame and we can res it in World. And there it is. We'll make sure that it's straight by changing it to 270. And I'm going to take the gray off and make it white. And now we're going to upload our texture. Build, Upload, Image. And here's our image. And upload. Now we have 2 materials defined here. So let's see what happens, and we know it's going to be wrong, if I just drag this texture into the main texture panel. Well, my texture didn't res very well. There we go. It put the texture that we want outside on our photo frame inside too. And that's really okay, but I want you to know what's happening. So in order to get a texture here in the center, we're going to upload a texture that I've had for 10 years from a hunt or something. Here we go. And we're going to put that in the center of our frame. We can turn that full bright if you want to. That's a typical thing to do. And we have our photo frame. Congratulations.